Most of what gets called breathtaking follows a pattern. The algorithm rewards repetition. But some places were shaped by forces so specific: a fault line, a mineral concentration, a microclimate within 4 kilometers, that no comparable location exists anywhere else on Earth. Reality exceeds all expectations when the planet stops following its own rules.
The air at 1,100 meters smells like cold granite and wet moss. Not the clean mountain air travel brochures promise, but something heavier, almost mineral. Trolltunga, the rock tongue jutting 700 meters above Lake Ringedalsvatnet, was essentially unknown outside Norway until around 2010. Locals hiked it quietly for decades. Then Instagram found it. What changed isn't the view, it's the 4-hour queue to stand on that ledge for 30 seconds, surrounded by strangers in matching hiking gear, all pretending to be alone. What changed isn't the view, it's the 4-hour queue to stand on that ledge for 30 seconds, surrounded by strangers in matching hiking gear, all pretending to be alone. How does a hillside turn completely white in the middle of southern Turkey? Calcium-rich thermal water, around 35 degrees Celsius, flows continuously down the slope, depositing calcium carbonate as it cools. The terraces built themselves over thousands of years. What nobody tells you, you walk barefoot on them mandatory and the surface isn't soft. It cuts. The thermal pools most visitors picture are largely dry now. Water gets redirected to protect the formations. You're walking on a geology experiment that outlived the hotels they demolished to save it. You're walking on a geology experiment that outlived the hotels they demolished to save it. Fewer than 10 people live there permanently. Civita di Bagnoregio sits on an eroding tufa plateau in central Lazio, connected to the world by a single pedestrian bridge, 300 meters long. The town is visibly shrinking. The cliff crumbles a little every year. The town is visibly shrinking. The cliff crumbles a little every year. What surprises you on arrival? It's immaculate. Flower pots on every windowsill, swept stone streets, a functioning cafe. The contrast is almost unsettling. A place geologists say won't exist in a century, maintained daily by a handful of elderly residents who simply haven't left. A local fisherman from Puerto Rio Tranquilo first guided tourists through by rowboat in the early 1990s. No dock, no schedule, just him and a wooden oar. The marble caves formed over 6,000 years as Lake General Carrera's waves slowly dissolved the calcium carbonate peninsula. The blue light inside shifts depending on water levels, which change seasonally. What stays with you isn't the color, it's the sound. Water moving inside hollow marble amplifies into something between a whisper and a low hum. N. Body warns you about that part. Hallstatt has a salt mine that has been continuously operated for over 7,000 years, the oldest in the world still functioning. The entire town exists because of salt. The lake location wasn't chosen for scenery, it was logistics. Salt is heavy, and water transport was the only practical option before roads. But the consequence nobody anticipated. A Chinese developer photographed it in 2011 and built an exact replica in Guangdong province. The original now receives over 1 million visitors annually. On summer mornings, the narrow lakeside path becomes genuinely impassable before 9 o'clock. Kayatur sits inside one of the least accessible rainforests on the planet. No road reaches it. The only practical option is a small propeller aircraft from Georgetown, roughly 45 minutes, landing on a grass strip carved into the jungle. That isolation shaped everything. There's no hotel, no vendor row, no railings close enough to feel safe. The falls drop 226 meters in a single uninterrupted plunge, nearly 5 times Niagara's height. What the isolation preserved is the sound. Standing at the edge, the roar isn't dramatic. It's just constant, physical, and slightly disorienting. What the isolation preserved is the sound. Standing at the edge, the roar isn't dramatic. It's just constant, physical, and slightly disorienting. Before the houses existed, the rock overhangs along the Rio Trejo Gorge were used as natural shelter. First by prehistoric communities, then by Moorish defenders who held the town against Castilian forces for 15 days in 1484. Ferdinand II finally took it, but the architecture he found was already built into the cliff. Nobody redesigned it. Residents simply kept building underneath the existing rock, extending outward over centuries. Today, you eat breakfast in a cafe with a living room ceiling of solid granite. Residents simply kept building underneath the existing rock, extending outward over centuries. T. Today you eat breakfast in a cafe with a living room ceiling of solid granite. The overhang doesn't feel dramatic from inside. It just feels like the wall belongs there. The park contains over 3,000 sandstone pillars, some exceeding 200 meters in height, packed into roughly 430 square kilometers of Hunan province. That density means the columns aren't dramatic exceptions in the landscape. They are the landscape. Visibility between them rarely exceeds a few hundred meters, which creates something the photos completely miss, a sense of disorientation that builds gradually as you walk. No single viewpoint resolves it. The implication is practical. Most visitors see the same 3 overlooks and leave convinced they've seen it. The interior trail system takes 4 days minimum to cover properly. The wind hits you sideways before you see anything. Drangarnir, 2 sea stacks rising from the North Atlantic off Vagar Island. The larger one pierced by a natural arch, smells of salt, wet basalt, and something faintly organic from the seabird colonies nesting in the rock face. Faroese fishermen used these stacks as navigation markers for centuries, reading their silhouette against the sky from open boats. Getting there still requires a boat crossing, plus a 2-hour hike across unmarked terrain. No trail signs. In low cloud, which is most days, the arch disappears completely until you're almost standing underneath it. How does a lake exist inside a mountain on a Greek island? Melisani, on Kefalonia, sits inside a collapsed karst chamber where the roof gave way thousands of years ago. Seawater enters through underground channels from the opposite side of the island, a journey of roughly 14 kilometers through solid rock, confirmed by dye tracing experiments in 1963. The practical detail nobody mentions. The boat tour lasts 12 minutes. You share a small rowboat with 8 strangers. The oarsman doesn't speak, and the turquoise light through the open ceiling lasts about 90 seconds before the tunnel section begins. Somehow, that's enough. The village sits at 200 meters in the Flores Highlands, reachable only by a 4-hour trek through dense forest. No vehicle access, no shortcuts. By the late 1990s, Way Rebo had been largely abandoned. Younger generations had moved to coastal towns. The problem wasn't poverty, it was relevance. A restoration project beginning in 2008 rebuilt the Mbaru Niang, the conical traditional houses, using original construction methods, and gradually families returned. The cost was specific, accepting tourism as the economic engine keeping the culture alive. Today, visitors pay an entry fee and sleep inside the village. The ceremony welcoming you in isn't optional. The highest village in Basilicata is also one of the least visited in southern Italy. Fewer than 100 residents, perched at 1,088 meters on a Dolomiti Lucane rock face so steep that some houses share a wall with the cliff itself. What surprises you isn't the height. It's the zip line. Since 2007, a 1,415-meter steel cable connects Pietrapertosa to the neighboring village of Castelmezzano. Locals call it Il Volo dell'Angelo, the Angel's Flight. You travel between two medieval villages at roughly 120 kilometers per hour. The contrast is difficult to process. Byzantine-era stone streets, then a harness technician asking your body weight. Before 1988, Fernando de Noronha was a federal prison territory. Civilians weren't permitted to settle freely, and the Brazilian military controlled access entirely. The archipelago's isolation, 354 kilometers off the northeast coast, made it a convenient place to disappear people. When it became a national marine park that year, the logic inverted completely. The same remoteness that made it useful for detention now made it valuable for conservation. Today, the number of daily visitors is capped, and every tourist pays a daily environmental tax that increases the longer you stay. The island essentially charges more the more you want it. A former Peruvian president built a summer house on its shore in the 1940s, when Huacachina was still a quiet retreat for Lima's upper class. The oasis, a natural lagoon completely encircled by sand dunes reaching 100 meters, exists because groundwater pushes to the surface through a geological fault beneath the Ica Desert. But agricultural irrigation upstream has been slowly dropping the water table for decades. By 2015, the lagoon required artificial pumping to maintain its level. The president's house is still there, converted into a hostel. The dunes are still there. The water underneath is not entirely natural anymore. Shkuly sits at 2,200 meters in the Greater Caucasus, making it one of the highest continuously inhabited settlements in Europe. The Nguri River valley that surrounds it becomes effectively impassable under snow for 4 to 5 months annually. That isolation produced something specific: the Svan Towers. Over 200 medieval defensive towers still stand across the village cluster, built between the 9th and 13th centuries, not for warfare primarily, but for family refuge during blood feuds that could last generations. The adaptation to confinement became the architecture. Today, the same towers that sealed families inside for months are what draws people in from outside. FM du Bloco 15.